Ma'am, step out of the car. You are weaving all over the road. I smell alcohol.
Officer, I'm diabetic. My sugar is low.
Save the excuses. I need you to step out and follow my instructions.
I'm going in the shop, please.
All right, that's enough. You're under arrest.
What happened to the black woman in that driver's seat, all because of one rookie cop's mistake, will leave you in disbelief. We open immediately on the rookie cop's trembling body cam. Afternoon sun blasting across the windshield, traffic rushing past. A black woman sits behind the wheel, breathing fast, eyelids heavy, hands shaking against the seatbelt. She looks up at the officer, voice fading. "Officer, please. My sugar, it's low." But the rookie doesn't hear desperation. He hears defiance. He steps in closer, rigid, hand hovering near his cuffs. "Ma'am, step out of the car. You're slurring. I smell alcohol." Her head drops. She tries to steady herself. She can barely move. The next 90 seconds will change everything. What you're about to see is the exact moment a rookie cop ignored a medical emergency, forced a diabetic woman into a sobriety test she was physically incapable of performing, and set off a chain reaction that would cost him his badge, his future, and now $10 million. Before we continue, where are you watching from? If this is your first time here, hit like and subscribe button. Stories like these need to be shared, and your support helps us bring more truth to light.
Interstate 85, just outside Atlanta, Georgia. 2:30 p.m. on a Tuesday in October. Clear skies, moderate traffic, nothing unusual. Just another afternoon commute where thousands of cars flow through without incident. Officer Derek Hastings had been with the Georgia State Patrol for 2 years. His training file noted concerns. Officer demonstrates strong enforcement initiative, but should improve medical assessment skills. That notation would prove prophetic. Hastings was running routine patrol when he spotted a silver Toyota Camry drifting slightly between lanes. Not aggressively, not recklessly. Just subtle weaving that could mean distraction, fatigue, mechanical issues, or, in Hastings' mind, intoxication. He activated his lights and initiated the stop. The Camry pulled over immediately, hazard lights blinking. Through his windshield, Hastings could see the driver slumped forward, head nearly touching the steering wheel. To a trained observer, this was a medical red flag. To Hastings, it confirmed his suspicion: drunk driver. His body cam captured his approach. The woman inside moved slowly when he tapped the window. Her movements were sluggish, uncoordinated. She fumbled with the window control, missing it twice before lowering the glass halfway. Denise Parker was 43 years old, a mother of 2, driving home from her morning shift as a hospital dietary aide. She'd been diagnosed with type 1 diabetes 18 years earlier and managed it carefully with insulin, regular meals, and continuous glucose monitoring. But that morning she'd skipped breakfast because of an early meeting, and her blood sugar had been dropping steadily for the past 30 minutes. By the time Hastings pulled her over, her glucose level was 41 mg per dl, dangerously low. Normal range is 70 to 100. Below 54 is considered severe hyperglycemia, requiring immediate treatment. At 41, Denise was minutes away from seizure, coma, or death. Hastings saw none of this. He saw glassy eyes, pale sweaty skin, trembling hands, and slurred speech. Classic signs of intoxication, he thought, but also classic signs of hypoglycemia if you're trained to recognize them. "Ma'am, step out of the car. You're weaving all over the road. I smell alcohol." Denise tried to explain, each word requiring enormous effort. "No, officer, I'm diabetic. My sugar, it's low." Hastings didn't hear a medical emergency. He heard an excuse, something drunk drivers say to avoid consequences. He'd been trained to recognize impairment, not medical distress. And in that moment, his training failed both of them. Save the excuses, step out. Should officers be trained to recognize medical distress, or is that asking too much of them?
Denise reached for the door handle and missed it twice. When she finally opened the door, her legs buckled immediately.
She caught herself on the doorframe, her entire body swaying, her knuckles white from gripping so hard. Hastings interpreted this as impaired mobility from alcohol. His hand moved instinctively toward his service weapon, not drawing it, but positioning for control. Because in his mind, this wasn't medical, this was a threat. The dash cam from Hastings' patrol car captured what he couldn't see from his position. In Denise's passenger seat, clearly visible through the window, was a bright red medical bag with a white cross symbol, the universal indicator of diabetic emergency supplies. Hastings never looked, never checked, never asked follow-up questions. He grabbed Denise's arm aggressively, pulling her away from the vehicle. She stumbled, nearly falling. "I need sugar! I need help!" Her speech was deteriorating rapidly. Words were breaking apart. But to Hastings, slurred speech meant intoxication, not a brain starving for glucose. "Stand straight, keep your balance, look at my finger." He began issuing rapid commands, standard field sobriety testing. Walk the line, touch your nose, stand on one foot. Commands that require coordination, balance, and cognitive function, all things that severe hypoglycemia destroys. Denise tried. Her body physically could not comply. She swayed with each attempt to stand still. She missed her nose by inches. She couldn't lift her foot without losing balance. Hastings marked each failure as evidence of intoxication. He was building a case in his mind, documenting impairment, preparing for DUI arrest and prosecution. She wasn't failing a sobriety test. She was losing consciousness. If someone can't follow instructions because they're having a medical crisis, should those commands even count? "You're under arrest for driving under the influence." Hastings reached for his handcuffs, turning slightly to retrieve them from his belt. The Bodycam captured what happened next in brutal clarity. Denise's knees buckled. Her eyes rolled back. Her body went completely limp. She dropped straight down, hitting the pavement with a sickening thud that the Bodycam's audio picked up clearly. She lay motionless on the hot asphalt, face down, arms at awkward angles, not moving. Hastings took a step backward. Not forward to help, backward, away from her. "Quit acting! Get up!" His voice carried irritation, not concern. In his mind, this was performance, resistance, something suspects do to avoid arrest or gain sympathy. Denise didn't respond because she couldn't. Her brain had no glucose left to function. She was in severe hypoglycemic crisis, minutes from permanent brain damage or death. Hastings keyed his radio. "Dispatch, I've got a possible DUI. Suspect refusing commands and now pretending to pass out. Need backup for transport." Pretending. That word would haunt him later. That word would cost him his career. That word would cost his department $10 million. A passing motorist slowed, lowering his window. "Hey, officer, that woman needs an ambulance. She's not moving." Hastings waved him off dismissively. "Sir, keep moving. This is police business." The motorist hesitated, clearly concerned, but eventually drove on. His dash cam footage would later corroborate everything. Denise's hands began twitching, small, involuntary movements. Classic hypoglycemic seizure activity. Medical emergency red flags visible to anyone with basic training. Hastings saw resistance, non-compliance, acting. Should police face consequences for mistaking a medical crisis as resistance? 3 minutes passed. Denise remained unconscious on the pavement. Officer Hastings stood over her, occasionally commanding her to get up, occasionally nudging her leg with his boot. A second patrol car arrived. Officer James Morrison stepped out, a 7-year veteran who'd worked with Hastings before. He walked over, assessed the scene, and reached the same conclusion as his colleague. "Smells like a drunk to me. She responsive?" Hastings shook his head.
She's faking, won't respond to commands. Morrison knelt beside Denise, close enough to see her shallow, irregular breathing, close enough to notice her skin was cold and clammy despite the warm afternoon, close enough to recognize medical distress if he'd been trained to look for it. He wasn't. Let's cuff her and get her transported for blood draw. They rolled Denise onto her side, still unconscious, and applied handcuffs. The body cam shows her wrists going limp in the restraints. No resistance because there was no consciousness to resist with. Another vehicle slowed. A woman's voice called out, "That woman needs help. I'm a nurse. That's not intoxication." Morrison walked toward the vehicle, his body language aggressive. "Ma'am, I need you to keep moving. We're handling this." "But she's showing signs of hypoglycemia. She needs glucose immediately." "Ma'am, final warning. Move along." The nurse drove away reluctantly, immediately calling 911 to report what she'd witnessed. That call recording would later become evidence. Denise's breathing became more labored. Her lips were turning slightly blue, early signs of oxygen deprivation. Her body was shutting down, prioritizing essential organs while non-essential functions ceased. And still, no ambulance was called, no medical assessment was performed, no emergency aid was rendered. Why do some officers assume the worst instead of checking first?
The investigation began 72 hours after Denise was finally transported to the hospital, not by ambulance in response to the traffic stop, but by her daughter, who found her mother's car impounded and her mother unconscious in a holding cell. By then, Denise had been in diabetic crisis for nearly 6 hours. She'd suffered a severe hypoglycemic episode that caused temporary brain swelling, nerve damage, and cognitive impairment that would take months to improve. The Internal Affairs team pulled all available footage: Hastings' body cam, Morrison's body cam, both dash cams, and critically Denise's own dash cam, a small camera mounted on her dashboard that she used for insurance purposes. That footage revealed everything Hastings had missed. At 2:17 p.m., 13 minutes before the traffic stop, Denise's glucose monitor alarm sounded. The dash cam audio picked it up clearly, a persistent beeping indicating dangerously low blood sugar. Denise's voice still relatively clear at that point. "No, not now. I'm almost home." She reached for her medical bag in the passenger seat but fumbled it, her coordination already deteriorating. The bag fell to the floor, glucose tablets scattering. She tried to reach down while driving but couldn't safely do so. At 2:24 p.m., she activated her hazard lights and began looking for a safe place to pull over. Her driving became more erratic as her cognitive function declined, causing the weaving that caught Hastings' attention. At 2:28 p.m., her glucose monitor showed 41 milligrams per deciliter. The alert sound became more urgent. Denise was whispering to herself, "Just pull over safely. Call for help, please." She was trying to do exactly what she should do: get off the road, stop the vehicle, seek assistance. But Hastings pulled her over before she could complete that process, then prevented her from accessing the medical supplies that could have resolved the crisis in minutes. Medical experts reviewed the footage and provided devastating assessments. Dr. Patricia Chen, an endocrinologist with 20 years of experience, Ms. Parker exhibited every classic symptom of severe hypoglycemia: confusion, tremors, slurred speech, inability to coordinate movements, altered mental status. These are textbook presentations. Any first responder with basic medical training should have recognized this immediately. Paramedic Michael Rodriguez, who reviewed the body cam footage, the officer performed zero medical assessment. He never checked her pupils, never asked about medications, never looked for medical alert jewelry, never searched the vehicle for medical equipment. He saw what he expected to see and stopped looking for anything else. This is exactly what we train first responders not to do. The investigation also uncovered something even more damning: departmental training records. 3 years earlier, the Georgia State Patrol had implemented mandatory medical response training for all officers. The 8-hour course covered diabetic emergencies, seizures,
cardiac events, and other conditions that could be mistaken for intoxication. Officer Derek Hastings had failed the final exam twice. He'd been allowed to retake it a third time and barely passed with the minimum score required. His instructor's notes were explicit. Officer Hastings struggles to distinguish medical distress from impairment. Recommend additional training before solo patrol. That recommendation was never implemented. Budget cuts had eliminated follow-up training. Hastings was cleared for duty with a notation in his file that was never reviewed again. What's the one training you think all officers should be required to pass?
The dashcam footage went viral within 48 hours of being obtained by Denise's attorney through discovery. The Georgia State Patrol tried to prevent its release, citing privacy concerns and ongoing investigation. A judge ruled the public interest outweighed those concerns. The video exploded across social media. Within 3 days, it had been viewed 50 million times. The comments section filled with outrage, with medical professionals explaining hypoglycemia, with stories from other diabetics who'd faced similar situations. The headlines wrote themselves. Cop arrests dying diabetic woman, mistakes medical emergency for DUI. Georgia officer ignores medical crisis, handcuffs unconscious woman. Viral video shows police negligence nearly kills diabetic mother. Community protests erupted outside Georgia State Patrol headquarters. Diabetes advocacy organizations issued statements condemning the officers' actions. Medical associations offered free training to law enforcement agencies. The Georgia State Patrol's public response was initially defensive. Our officers followed standard DUI enforcement protocols and acted within department policy. That statement lasted exactly 6 hours before public backlash forced a retraction and apology. The department's internal investigation, completed under intense scrutiny, found violations of medical aid protocols requiring immediate assessment of unresponsive subjects, use of force guidelines prohibiting restraint of unconscious individuals without medical clearance, emergency response duty requiring officers to summon medical assistance for anyone in medical distress, documentation standards requiring notation of any medical claims made by subjects. Officer Hastings was placed on immediate administrative leave. Officer Morrison, who had arrived as backup and failed to perform independent assessment, was suspended pending investigation. The investigation also revealed systemic failures. Internal emails show the department had cut medical response training budgets by 60% over 2 years. Refresher courses had been eliminated. New officers received only cursory medical training before being assigned to road patrol. The police chief initially backed Hastings publicly, stating he'd acted in good faith based on his training. That support evaporated when the training record surfaced, showing Hastings' repeated failures and the ignored recommendations for additional instruction. Denise survived, but her recovery was brutal. She spent 11 days in the hospital. The prolonged hypoglycemia caused peripheral neuropathy in her hands and feet, nerve damage resulting in chronic pain and numbness. She developed cognitive issues, including short-term memory problems and difficulty concentrating. She lost her job because she could no longer safely perform her duties. Her children had watched the viral Bodycam footage along with millions of others. They'd seen their mother collapse, seen officers treat her as a criminal rather than a patient, and seen her lying handcuffed and unconscious on hot pavement. The trauma extended far beyond Denise's physical injuries.
The federal civil rights lawsuit was filed 4 months after the incident. It named Officer Derek Hastings, Officer James Morrison, the Georgia State Patrol, and the Georgia Department of Public Safety as defendants. The claims were comprehensive: violation of Fourth Amendment rights, unreasonable seizure and excessive force, violation of 14th Amendment rights, denial of medical care, negligence and gross negligence, failure to render aid, wrongful arrest and false imprisonment, intentional infliction of emotional distress, municipal liability for inadequate training under Monell Doctrine. The evidence was overwhelming. Multiple video angles, medical expert testimony, training records documenting known deficiencies, witness statements from the passing motorist and nurse, Denise's own medical records showing the severity of her condition. The state's attorneys examined the case and reached an unavoidable conclusion. This would not survive summary judgment, and any jury that saw the footage would award massive damages. Settlement negotiations began immediately. The initial offer, $3 million plus policy reforms, was rejected. Denise's attorneys made clear this case was about more than money. It was about forcing systemic change to prevent the next diabetic from being criminalized during a medical crisis. The final settlement reached after 2 months of intensive negotiation. $10 million paid to Denise Parker for medical expenses, lost income, pain and suffering, and future care costs. Termination of Officer Derek Hastings with permanent POST certification revocation. Suspension and retraining requirement for Officer James Morrison. Implementation of mandatory annual medical response training for all Georgia State Patrol officers. Creation of medical alert check protocol requiring officers to search for medical equipment and alert jewelry before making impairment arrests. Partnership with diabetes advocacy organizations to develop training materials. Public acknowledgement of failure and formal apology to Denise Parker. Officer Hastings was fired the same day the settlement was announced. His POST certification was permanently revoked, ending any possibility of future law enforcement employment in Georgia or any other state. His union initially considered defending him, but declined after reviewing the evidence. The union president's statement was blunt. We cannot defend actions that ignored basic humanity and medical reality. Hastings released a brief statement through his attorney. I regret that Miss Parker suffered harm. I believed I was following my training. He never acknowledged that his training was inadequate because he'd failed to master it, never admitted that his assumptions overrode obvious medical distress, never took full responsibility for nearly killing someone through negligence. Do you think $10 million is enough for what she endured?
Denise Parker continues to live with the consequences of that October afternoon. The neuropathy in her hands and feet causes constant tingling and occasional sharp pain. Her memory issues have improved, but not fully resolved. She can't work in healthcare anymore because the cognitive demands are too challenging. But she's channeled her trauma into advocacy. She speaks at law enforcement training sessions, sharing her story to help officers recognize diabetic emergencies. She works with diabetes organizations to develop educational materials for first responders. She's helped draft legislation requiring enhanced medical training for police officers. Her children, now teenagers, understand what happened to their mother. They've watched her transform pain into purpose, victimhood into advocacy. They've learned that justice sometimes comes slowly, imperfectly, but it can come. The Bodycam footage is now used in police academies across the country as a case study in what not to do. It appears in medical training for first responders as an example of confirmation bias overriding medical reality. It's become a teaching tool that's likely prevented similar tragedies. The Georgia State Patrol implemented every reform required by the settlement. Medical training hours tripled. Failure rates in medical response courses now result in automatic disqualification from road patrol. Officers are required to perform medical checks before making impairment arrests. But the deeper question remains. How many other diabetics, epileptics, stroke victims, and people in medical crisis have been criminalized because officers saw what they expected to see rather than what was actually happening? Denise's case became visible because of video evidence and viral attention. How many cases never reached that visibility? How many people suffered in silence, blamed for their own medical emergencies, criminalized for biological crises beyond their control? A diabetic emergency isn't a crime. It's a medical crisis. But that day, to Officer Derek Hastings, it looked like an inconvenience, something to be controlled rather than aided, someone to be arrested rather than helped. And that assumption nearly cost Denise Parker her life. The $10 million settlement delivered justice. The reforms might prevent future tragedies,
But Denise will never fully recover. Her children will never unsee that footage. And families across the country will continue to fear that the people sworn to protect them might not recognize when they need help instead of handcuffs. Before you leave, where are you watching from? If this is your first time here, hit subscribe. Stories like these need to be shared, and your support helps us bring more truth to light.
You're in big trouble. License and registration now.
I'm Captain Jones. There's a house fire, 2 kids and their mother. My crew's short and I gotta be there now.
I said stay in the car. You want to drive recklessly? Talk to a judge.
I got my chief's uniform.
What happened to the family trapped inside that burning home? All because of one rookie cop's mistake will leave you in disbelief. We open immediately with the rookie cop's shaking body cam, blinding daylight, blasting horns in rush hour traffic. A black man in a black sedan slams his hands on the steering wheel, shouting through a half-open window, "Please, I'm a fire captain. 2 kids and a mother are trapped." The rookie officer ignores him, voice cold, hand already on his cuffs. The next 90 seconds will change everything. What you're about to see is the exact moment a rookie cop made a decision that would cost a firefighter his career, cost a city its trust, and cost a family their lives. Before we continue, where are you watching from? If this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button. Stories like these need to be shared, and your support helps us bring more truth to light.
Memphis, Tennessee. Poplar Avenue during the 3 p.m. rush hour on a scorching August afternoon where the temperature had climbed to 94 degrees and tempers were already short. Traffic was gridlocked in both directions. Commuters heading home early, delivery trucks double parked, construction zones narrowing lanes to a crawl. The kind of urban congestion where even emergency vehicles struggled to make progress. Captain Marcus Jones had been with the Memphis Fire Department for 16 years. At 42 years old, he was a decorated veteran who'd risen through the ranks from probationary firefighter to company captain, earning commendations for bravery, leadership, and tactical excellence. He specialized in structural fire suppression and had personally rescued 23 people from burning buildings over his career. That afternoon, he was off duty. He'd taken a personal day to attend his daughter's middle school graduation ceremony. He was wearing civilian clothes, a dark blue button-down shirt and khaki pants, and driving his personal vehicle, a black Honda Accord. No uniform, no lights, no sirens, just a father heading home from his daughter's special day. At 3:17 p.m., his department-issued radio, which he carried even off-duty, as all captains were required to do, crackled to life with an emergency dispatch. All units, structure fire with entrapment, 2847 Lamar Avenue. Multiple 911 calls reporting children trapped on second floor. Flames visible from street. All available units respond immediately. Captain Jones's body reacted before his mind fully processed the information. His heart rate spiked. His hands tightened on the steering wheel. Because 2847 Lamar Avenue was 6 blocks from his current location, and the address triggered immediate recognition. It was a residential area he knew well, an older neighborhood with wooden construction and narrow staircases, the kind of structure that could go from manageable fire to complete collapse in under 10 minutes. He keyed his radio. "Dispatch, this is Captain Jones. I'm off duty but in the vicinity. I can be on scene in 3 minutes to assist with command and entry operations." The response came back immediately, tight with urgency. "Captain Jones, we have confirmation of 3 victims trapped, 2 juveniles and 1 adult female. First engine is 8 minutes out. We need senior command on scene immediately. You're authorized for emergency response." That authorization meant everything. Under Tennessee law and Memphis Fire Department policy, off-duty firefighters responding to confirmed entrapment situations were granted the same emergency driving privileges as on-duty personnel. They could exceed speed limits, navigate through traffic, and take necessary actions to reach the scene as quickly as safety allowed. He activated his emergency flashers, four-way hazards, that while not as distinctive as fire apparatus lights, signaled to other drivers that his vehicle was responding to an emergency. He began navigating through traffic, using shoulders where available, honking to signal his approach, moving with the controlled urgency that 16 years of emergency response had trained into his muscle memory. He wasn't driving recklessly. The Bodycam footage from what happened next would later confirm this. He maintained reasonable speeds. He stopped at red lights long enough to ensure cross-traffic had cleared. He signaled lane changes. He drove exactly the way emergency response training taught, fast but controlled, urgent but not suicidal. But to Officer Bradley Mitchell, a 22-year-old rookie with exactly 3 weeks of solo patrol experience, Captain Jones looked like a reckless driver who needed to be stopped.
Criminal behavior, reckless endangerment, someone who needed to be controlled. Mitchell activated his lights and siren and pulled into traffic to pursue. His patrol car was faster and equipped with full emergency equipment, so he caught up quickly. The chase, if it could even be called that, lasted 90 seconds and covered 4 blocks. Captain Jones saw the lights in his rearview mirror, and his heart sank. He had 3 options: stop immediately and lose critical minutes while children burned alive, continue to the scene and deal with the consequences later, or try to communicate with the officer while moving. He chose communication. He grabbed his radio and transmitted. "Dispatch, I'm being pulled over by MPD while responding. Please contact Memphis Police and advise of my emergency status." He began pulling over, but slowly, still moving forward, trying to minimize time lost. His window was already down because of the heat. As Mitchell's patrol car pulled alongside, Captain Jones shouted through the window, his voice carrying desperation and urgency. "Officer, I'm responding to a structure fire with trapped children. I'm Fire Captain Marcus Jones. I have authorization." Mitchell didn't hear "Fire Captain." He heard a black man shouting at him. And in his mind, shaped by 3 weeks of training that emphasized officer safety and compliance over all else, that shouting registered as aggression. The body cam footage captures Mitchell's approach. His face is set, angry, his body language aggressive. He's not assessing the situation. He's already decided this driver is a threat who needs to be dominated. "You're in big trouble. License and registration, now!" Captain Jones' face shows pure anguish. "Officer, I'm Captain Jones. There's a house fire with 2 kids and their mother. My crew is short. I gotta be there now." Mitchell's response is cold, inflexible, textbook enforcement mentality, without any room for context or emergency exception. "Stay in the car. You want to drive recklessly? You talk to a judge." The fire radio on Captain Jones' passenger seat crackles again. Dispatch's voice is strained. "All units, update on Lamar Avenue structure fire. Witnesses reporting children visible in second-floor window. Heavy smoke conditions. ETA on first engine is still 5 minutes." Captain Jones hears those words, and something breaks inside him. 5 minutes. 5 minutes for children who might have 2 minutes of breathable air left. 5 minutes while he sits on the side of a road explaining basic fire department protocol to a cop who won't listen. His voice rises, no longer calm, no longer professional, just raw human desperation. "My chief's uniform is in the back. Every second is life or death." He reaches toward the back seat, where his turnout coat and helmet are visible on the seat. It's a natural movement, reaching to show proof of his identity, to demonstrate that he's exactly who he says he is. But Officer Bradley Mitchell sees a black man reaching for something in a vehicle during a traffic stop, and his training, inadequate, incomplete, focused obsessively on officer safety while ignoring context, kicks in. "You're resisting. You just made this worse, pal." If you were in Captain Jones' place, what would you have done? Drop your thoughts below. What happens next is captured in brutal, undeniable clarity from multiple angles. Mitchell's body cam, the dash cam from his patrol car,
Cell phone footage from a driver stopped 2 cars back who recognized something was wrong. All 3 perspectives document the same catastrophic escalation. Mitchell yanks open Captain Jones' door with excessive force. "Step out of the vehicle, hands where I can see them." Captain Jones's face shows disbelief, fury, terror, all competing for dominance. "Officer, you don't understand. I said out." Mitchell grabs Captain Jones' arm and pulls him from the vehicle. The radio in the car continues broadcasting. "Command to any responding units, structure fire at Lamar Avenue is now fully involved, requesting immediate entry team for confirmed victim location." Captain Jones tries one more time, his voice breaking. "Please, please, there are children in that house." Mitchell forces him against the hood of the Honda, the hot metal burning through Captain Jones's shirt. He wrenches the captain's arms behind his back. The handcuffs go on with mechanical efficiency, clicking closed with the finality of a prison door slamming shut. The cell phone footage captures Captain Jones's expression perfectly. It's not anger anymore. It's not even fear for himself. It's something worse. It's the face of a man who knows, who absolutely knows, that people are dying while he's being criminalized for trying to save them. Mitchell keys his radio, his voice carrying the false authority of someone who thinks they've just prevented a dangerous situation. "Dispatch, I need backup at Poplar and Bellevue. Subject was driving recklessly through traffic, refused to stop, got aggressive when I approached. I've got him secured pending transport." Every single element of that transmission is false. Captain Jones wasn't driving recklessly. He was driving with emergency authorization. He didn't refuse compliance. He tried to explain an emergency situation. He wasn't intoxicated. Later blood tests would confirm 0 alcohol or drugs in his system. But those lies, transmitted over police radio and documented in official records, would become part of the narrative Mitchell was building to justify his actions. A second patrol car arrives within 2 minutes. Officer Sarah Chen steps out, a 5-year veteran who immediately senses something is wrong with this scenario. She walks over to Mitchell, who's standing guard over Captain Jones, still handcuffed against the Honda's hood. "What's the situation?" "Subject was driving recklessly through traffic, refused to stop, got aggressive when I approached. I've got him secured pending transport." Chen looks at Captain Jones, noting his civilian clothes, but professional demeanor, the desperation in his eyes, and something else, the radio still broadcasting from inside the vehicle. She leans closer and hears it. "All units, Lamar Avenue structure fire, we have collapse imminent. Where is Captain Jones? We need senior command for entry operations. 2-minute window before we lose structural integrity."
Chin's eyes widen. She turns to Captain Jones. "Are you a firefighter?" Captain Jones's voice is hoarse, exhausted, defeated. "I'm Captain Marcus Jones, Memphis Fire Department. Off duty but authorized for emergency response. There's a family trapped in a burning house 6 blocks from here. I was responding when he pulled me over. I tried to explain, he wouldn't listen. And now those people are going to die because of this." Chen immediately keys her radio. "Dispatch, this is Unit 347. We need supervisor response to Poplar and Bellevue immediately. We have a detained firefighter who claims emergency response authorization to an active structure fire." The response is immediate. "Roger that, 347. Be advised, Fire Department Dispatch has been requesting police assistance to locate Captain Marcus Jones, who is responding to Lamar Avenue incident. Supervisor en route." Mitchell's face goes pale. Chen turns to him, her voice tight with barely controlled fury. "You detained a fire captain responding to an active emergency with trapped victims?" "He was driving recklessly. He didn't identify himself properly." Captain Jones's voice cuts through, raw and breaking. "I identified myself 3 times. I showed you my radio. I told you children were trapped. You didn't care. You just saw a black man and decided I was a criminal." The timeline would later confirm the devastating truth. From the moment Mitchell initiated the traffic stop
to the moment Chen's call finally resulted in Captain Jones's release, 11 minutes elapsed. 11 minutes of arguing, handcuffing, processing, and bureaucratic confirmation of information that Captain Jones had been trying to provide from the beginning. 11 minutes while a house burned. 11 minutes while a family waited for help. 11 minutes that would determine whether people lived or died. Should firefighters responding to emergencies be exempt from traffic stops when lives are on the line? Let me know your opinion. The audio from fire department dispatch tells the story that body cams and dash cams can't capture. It's the voice of professionals watching helplessly as a situation spirals beyond their control. 3:21 p.m. Engine 17, what's your ETA to Lamar Avenue? Dispatch, Engine 17 still 6 minutes out. Traffic is heavy. We're moving as fast as we can. Copy that. Be advised, we have multiple 911 calls reporting children visible in second floor window. Heavy smoke conditions throughout structure. 3:24 p.m. Any unit in the vicinity of Lamar Avenue structure fire, we need immediate response. Captain Jones, what's your status? Silence. 3:27 p.m. Dispatch to Captain Jones, please respond. We have critical need for senior command on scene. More silence. Because Captain Jones is handcuffed on the side of Poplar Avenue, his radio out of reach, his voice unheard. 3:29 p.m. All units, Lamar Avenue structure fire is now fully involved. Witnesses reporting partial roof collapse, unknown status on trapped victims. The first fire engine arrived at 3:31 p.m., 14 minutes after the initial dispatch. Lieutenant James Morrison stepped off the engine and immediately assessed a worst-case scenario. The structure was a 2-story wood frame house built in 1952. The fire had started in the first-floor kitchen and spread rapidly through the walls and ceiling, creating a classic chimney effect that turned the stairwell into a blast furnace. Flames were visible through every first-floor window. Heavy black smoke poured from the second floor, and in the front bedroom window on the second floor, Morrison could see them. 2 small faces pressed against the glass, a woman behind them trying desperately to break the window with her bare hands.
Morrison's body cam captured everything. The frantic activity as his crew pulled hose lines, the radio calls for additional equipment, the tactical assessment that confirmed what he already knew. This was a rescue operation measured in seconds, not minutes. But Morrison was a lieutenant, not a captain. His training covered firefighting operations, but not incident command under these specific conditions. Captain Jones, with 16 years of experience, including specialized training in structural collapse and high-risk entry operations, should have been there to direct the rescue. He wasn't. Morrison made the best decision he could with the information and training he had. He ordered an interior attack, sending 2 firefighters up the exterior stairs to the second floor while his crew hit the first floor fire from outside to buy time. It wasn't enough. The 2 firefighters, both brave, both trained, both doing exactly what their profession demanded, made it halfway up the exterior stairs when the structure's integrity failed. 50 years of wood framing weakened by intense heat gave way all at once. The roof collapsed inward, driving a pressure wave of superheated air and debris down through the house. The firefighters on the stairs were thrown backward by the blast. The family in the second-floor bedroom, a mother, a 6-year-old daughter, and a 9-year-old son, had no chance to escape. Morrison's body cam captured the moment. The thunderous collapse, the explosion of sparks and ash, the screams of firefighters calling for help, and then, slowly, the terrible silence of understanding. The audio recording continues, Morrison's voice, steadying despite the horror, transmitting the words that no incident commander ever wants to say. Dispatch, Engine 17. Structure has collapsed. Multiple victims unaccounted for. Requesting rescue squad and medical examiner. The mother and her 2 children never made it out alive. At 3:34 p.m., 17 minutes after the initial dispatch and 3 minutes after the collapse, Captain Marcus Jones was finally released from handcuffs.
A supervisor had arrived, confirmed his identity, and ordered Mitchell to release him immediately. Captain Jones ran to his vehicle, grabbed his turnout gear, and drove to the scene. He arrived at 3:41 p.m., 24 minutes after the initial call. By then, the house was a smoldering ruin. The rescue squad was pulling bodies from the debris, and Lieutenant Morrison was sitting on the bumper of his engine, his face buried in his hands, his body shaking with sobs. Captain Jones walked through the scene in silence. He saw the collapsed structure. He saw the body bags being prepared. He saw his crew's faces, the guilt, the trauma, the helpless fury of professionals who'd done everything right and still failed to save lives. Morrison looked up and saw his captain. His voice was hoarse with smoke and emotion. "Sir, I tried. We tried, but the structure went before we could—" Captain Jones put a hand on Morrison's shoulder. His voice was steady, but barely. "This wasn't your fault, Lieutenant. You did everything you could with the situation you were given. This is on the system that kept me from getting here in time."
Fire Chief Raymond Patterson arrived on scene at 4:15 p.m. He was a 32-year veteran of the Memphis Fire Department, a man who'd seen every kind of fire, every kind of tragedy, every kind of loss. But when he stepped out of his command vehicle and saw the body bags, when he saw his firefighters' faces, when Captain Jones briefed him on what had happened, something in him broke. He walked to his vehicle in silence, grabbed his portable radio, and transmitted a message that would reverberate through both the fire department and police department for months to come. "All Memphis fire units, this is Chief Patterson. Stand by for important announcement. At approximately 3:17 p.m. today, Captain Marcus Jones was legally responding to this structure fire with confirmed entrapment when he was detained by Memphis police. Despite multiple attempts to identify himself and explain the emergency, he was handcuffed and held for 11 minutes while this family died. I am immediately requesting a joint investigation with the police department, the mayor's office, and the district attorney. This tragedy was preventable, and someone will be held accountable." The message was transmitted on an open channel. Every firefighter in the city heard it. Every police officer monitoring fire channels heard it. And within minutes, every local news outlet monitoring emergency channels had recorded it and begun reporting. By 5 p.m., the story had exploded across Memphis. By 6 p.m., it was regional news. By 8 p.m., national news networks were running segments with headlines that wrote themselves. "Black fire captain detained while family burns to death. Rookie cop's traffic stop costs 3 lives. Memphis tragedy raises questions about police training. Firefighter handcuffed as children die in a blaze." Chief Patterson went directly from the fire scene to Memphis Police Headquarters. Security footage from the building's lobby captured his arrival. Still in his turnout gear, his face streaked with ash and sweat, his expression carrying the kind of rage that comes from watching preventable deaths. He walked past the front desk without checking in, took the elevator to the 3rd floor, and entered Police Chief Marcus Williams' office without knocking. What happened next was described by multiple witnesses who heard the confrontation through closed doors. Patterson slammed Bodycam footage, already obtained through emergency interdepartmental protocols, on Williams' desk. "Watch it, all of it. Then tell me how we explain to that family that their mother and children died because your rookie cop couldn't recognize an emergency responder." Chief Williams watched the footage in silence. Mitchell's aggressive approach, Captain Jones's repeated explanations, the handcuffing, the 11-minute delay, all of it documented in crystal clear, high definition.
When the video ended, Williams' expression was grim. "Chief Patterson, I understand your anger. I share it. This officer will face immediate administrative review." Patterson cut him off. "Administrative review? 3 people are dead. That captain, one of my best officers, tried to save them. Your cop wouldn't listen, didn't verify, didn't care. He saw a black man in a car and decided that was all he needed to know." The meeting lasted 2 hours.
It ended with both chiefs agreeing to a comprehensive joint investigation and a public statement acknowledging that the incident raised serious concerns about interdepartmental communication and police training. But the damage had already spread far beyond two chiefs' offices. The Memphis Firefighters Association, the union representing 1,400 firefighters, called an emergency meeting that evening. The vote was unanimous. Demand immediate termination of Officer Mitchell, comprehensive policy reforms, and financial compensation for Captain Jones. Civil rights organizations mobilized. The Memphis chapter of the NAACP issued a statement calling the incident a tragic example of racial profiling that cost innocent lives. The National Office of the Fraternal Order of Firefighters condemned the detention as unconscionable interference with emergency operations. Community groups organized protests. By Thursday evening, over 2,000 people had gathered outside Memphis Police Headquarters demanding accountability. The crowd included firefighters in full turnout gear, families who'd been saved by Captain Jones over his 16-year career, and residents who understood that if this could happen to a decorated fire captain, it could happen to anyone. Officer Bradley Mitchell was placed on administrative leave within 48 hours. The internal investigation moved with unusual speed, driven by public pressure and the undeniable clarity of the evidence. The investigative report, completed 2 weeks later, was devastating. Officer Mitchell initiated a traffic stop of an off-duty firefighter exercising legal emergency response privileges. Despite multiple verbal identifications and clear emergency context, Officer Mitchell failed to verify Captain Jones' status, escalated to physical detention, and delayed emergency response by 11 minutes. This delay directly contributed to the failure of rescue operations that resulted in 3 civilian deaths. Officer Mitchell's actions violated department protocols regarding emergency responder recognition, interdepartmental coordination, and use of discretion in traffic enforcement. The report also revealed something that explained, though didn't excuse, Mitchell's catastrophic judgment. He had never received training on recognizing off-duty emergency responder status. The Memphis Police Academy curriculum included one 45-minute PowerPoint presentation on interacting with emergency services, but it focused entirely on on-duty personnel in official vehicles. Nothing covered off-duty responses. Nothing addressed how to verify firefighter credentials. Nothing taught officers that emergency authorization extended beyond fire trucks and ambulances. Mitchell had been set up to fail by inadequate training, but 3 people were still dead because of his failure. Should rookies be allowed to patrol alone? Yes or no? Why?
Ma'am, I smell marijuana. That gives me probable cause to search your vehicle. Step out now.
I haven't been smoking, officer. You do not have probable cause. I advise you to check your body cam before you violate my 4th Amendment rights.
Get out. You think you're smart? I told you what I smell.
What happened to this woman during a simple traffic stop, all because one officer claimed he smelled marijuana, would not only spark national outrage, but ignite a lawsuit that shook an entire police department. Quick flashes, his voice barking probable cause, her voice steady, unbreakable. You are violating my rights. A hard cut to the body cam catching every second. What you're about to see is the exact moment a police officer crossed a constitutional line, a moment that would explode across social media, dominate headlines for weeks, and force the city to pay $12 million after the truth was exposed. Before we continue, where are you watching from? If this is your first time here, hit that subscribe button. Stories like these need to be shared, and your support helps bring more truth to light. But why was this officer so desperate to search her car? And what didn't he expect the body cam to capture?
Riverside County, California. Magnolia Avenue on a Tuesday afternoon in September. Temperature 76 degrees. Light traffic. clear visibility, a well-maintained suburban street where nothing unusual should happen, where a routine drive home from work should be exactly that, routine. Officer Ryan Whitmore had been with the Riverside Police Department for 4 years. His personnel file contained notations that supervisors had chosen to ignore, aggressive enforcement patterns, multiple complaints regarding traffic stops, recommend additional training on de-escalation and probable cause standards. Those recommendations were never implemented. The complaints were never seriously investigated. And on this particular Tuesday, that institutional failure was about to cost the city $12 million. Whitmore was running routine patrol when he spotted a silver Mercedes sedan. The driver was a black woman, professionally dressed, obeying all traffic laws. Speed limit was 45. She was doing 43. She signaled every lane change. She maintained proper following distance. There was no legitimate traffic violation, no equipment malfunction, no erratic driving. But Officer Whitmore had already decided what this stop was about, and what he said next would set in motion a chain of events that would expose years of unconstitutional policing. Do you think some officers already know what they're going to do before they even reach the window?
The body cam captured everything in soft daylight. Crystal clear audio and video. No technical malfunctions, no gaps in recording. Just undeniable documentation of what happened next. Ma'am, I smell marijuana. That gives me probable cause to search your vehicle. Step out now. Angela's hands remained on the steering wheel. Her expression didn't change. No panic, no guilt, just immediate recognition of what was happening. She'd heard stories about this tactic. Fabricated probable cause, pretextual searches, officers using subjective claims about odors to justify searches they had no legal basis to conduct. She looked directly at the body cam mounted on Whitmore's chest, then met his eyes. Her voice was calm, measured, carrying the professional authority of someone who understood constitutional law. I haven't been smoking, officer. You do not have probable cause. I advise you to check your body cam before you violate my Fourth Amendment rights. The body cam captured Whitmore's face clearly. No surprise, no reconsideration, just anger at being challenged. His hand moved to the door handle. Get out. You think you're smart? I told you what I smell. He yanked the door open before Angela could respond. She remained seated for a moment, her voice still controlled, still addressing both the officer and the camera that was recording everything. There is nothing in this car. This illegal search is being recorded. Whitmore leaned into the doorframe, his face inches from Angela's, his voice rising. We'll see about that. Get the hell out. The body cam audio picked up every word, every threat, every violation of procedure. Whitmore had skipped every standard protocol. He hadn't asked for license and registration, hadn't explained the reason for the stop, hadn't requested permission to search, hadn't followed any of the steps that distinguish lawful policing from constitutional violation. Angela stepped out of the vehicle slowly, deliberately, maintaining her composure even as her rights were being trampled. She stood beside her car, hands visible, making no threatening movements, and watched as Officer Whitmore prepared to conduct a search based on probable cause that didn't exist. If the first thing a cop says is a lie, how would you react?
Officer Whitmore keyed his radio, his voice carrying false authority. Dispatch 4 Adam 7, conducting vehicle search at Magnolia and Riverside Drive. Strong odor of marijuana detected upon approach. That radio transmission, time-stamped at 2:34 p.m., would later become critical evidence, because the body cam footage recording simultaneously told a completely different story. The timestamp showed Whitmore standing beside Angela's vehicle, the driver's door open, positioned at least 5 feet from the interior. The wind direction, captured by trees swaying in the background, was blowing from the vehicle toward the street, away from his position. His body language showed no physical reaction to any odor, no wrinkling of the nose, no leaning closer to investigate, no hand gestures suggesting olfactory stimulus.
He was creating an official record of probable cause that video evidence would prove was fabricated. Angela remained standing on the curb, her hands clasped in front of her, her voice steady. "Officer, you're creating a false record. I don't smoke marijuana. I never have. There is no odor because there is no marijuana in my vehicle." Whitmore ignored her and began his search. He started with the center console, pulling out items carelessly, sunglasses, registration papers, a phone charging cable, and tossing them onto the passenger seat. His movements were aggressive, rushed, the actions of someone searching with predetermined expectation rather than methodical investigation. The glove compartment yielded nothing but the owner's manual and insurance documents. The door pockets contained nothing but a reusable water bottle and some napkins. The back seat was empty except for a gym bag containing workout clothes and a pair of running shoes. Angela watched in silence for 30 seconds, then addressed the body cam directly, her voice carrying the measured tone of someone documenting evidence. "Officer Whitmore claimed to smell marijuana before my windows were even fully lowered. He's now searching my vehicle without consent and without actual probable cause. Every compartment he's opening is empty. Every claim he's made is false. This is being recorded from multiple angles." That last statement would prove prophetic, because Angela's vehicle was equipped with a dash cam, a small camera mounted behind her rearview mirror that she'd installed after reading about false arrests and fabricated traffic stops. That camera was recording everything from a different angle, capturing details the body cam couldn't see. Whitmore moved to the trunk. He opened Angela's briefcase and rifled through legal documents, confidential client files that he had no authority to examine. He unzipped the gym bag and dumped its contents onto the trunk floor. He even checked the spare tire compartment, pulling up the mat and examining the space beneath. 15 minutes had passed. 15 minutes of invasive searching. And the result? Absolutely nothing. No marijuana, no drug paraphernalia, no pills in unmarked bottles, no suspicious substances, no evidence of any illegal activity whatsoever. But Officer Whitmore wasn't done, because admitting he'd found nothing meant admitting his probable cause was fabricated, and his ego wouldn't allow it. "Your nervousness tells me you're hiding something. People who have nothing to hide don't act this way." Angela's response was immediate and pointed. "I'm not nervous, officer. I'm angry. There's a difference. I'm angry that you fabricated probable cause. I'm angry that you're violating my constitutional rights. And I'm angry that you're wasting my time searching for something that doesn't exist." Whitmore's jaw tightened. He returned to the driver's area and searched again, the same compartments he'd already checked, looking for something, anything that could justify what he'd already done. The body cam showed his growing frustration. His movements became more erratic, his breathing elevated. He was searching not to find contraband, but to avoid the consequences of admitting he'd initiated an illegal search based on a lie. Should citizens be required to step out when the reason is clearly fake?
23 minutes had passed since Officer Whitmore initiated the traffic stop. 23 minutes of Angela standing on a public sidewalk in broad daylight while her vehicle was ransacked. 23 minutes of humiliation, violation, and constitutional abuse, all captured on multiple cameras. Whitmore pulled everything from Angela's vehicle. The contents of her center console were scattered across the passenger seat. Her gym bag's contents were strewn across the trunk. Her briefcase was open, confidential legal documents exposed to the elements. Her registration and insurance papers were crumpled on the dashboard. The body cam captured the scene in undeniable detail. Every compartment empty, every search yielding nothing, every claim about marijuana odor proven false by the complete absence of any contraband. But instead of acknowledging his mistake, instead of apologizing and allowing Angela to leave, Whitmore doubled down. "The smell was definitely present when I approached. My training allows me to detect marijuana odor at significant distances. Your defensive attitude and refusal to cooperate indicate consciousness of guilt." Every statement was false. The body cam footage, reviewed later by multiple experts, showed no indication of odor detection. Whitmore's approach showed no hesitation, no investigation of smell, no confirmation of his claimed sensory perception.
He'd stated his conclusion before any investigation occurred, and Angela's behavior showed no signs of guilt, only justified anger at rights violations. She'd cooperated completely, stepping out when ordered, not interfering with the search, simply documenting the violation verbally for the recording. A passing driver slowed, his window lowering. His voice carried concern. "Ma'am, are you okay? Do you need help?" Angela turned toward him. "I'm being subjected to an illegal search based on fabricated probable cause. If you have a phone, please record this." Whitmore moved quickly toward the passing vehicle. "Sir, keep moving. This is official police business." The driver hesitated, clearly uncomfortable, but eventually drove on. His departure wasn't retreat, it was strategic, because he immediately pulled over a block away and began recording on his cell phone, capturing the broader scene that the Bodycam's limited field of view couldn't document. Whitmore returned to Angela's vehicle for a third search of compartments he'd already searched twice. This time he removed the floor mats, checked under the seats with his flashlight, even examined the air vents. His determination to find something, anything, was palpable. Angela addressed the Bodycam again. "Officer Whitmore has now searched my vehicle 3 separate times. He has found nothing because there is nothing to find. He is continuing this detention despite complete absence of evidence. This is harassment, this is racial profiling, and this is unconstitutional." At this point, is this just racism or abuse of power or both?
What Angela didn't know, when Officer Whitmore hoped would never be discovered, was that she wasn't his first victim. She was simply the first with the resources, knowledge, and documentation to fight back effectively. The Riverside Police Department's Internal Affairs Division had files on Officer Whitmore dating back 3 years, files that supervisors had reviewed and dismissed, files that documented a pattern so clear it should have triggered immediate investigation and discipline. Complaint number 1, filed March 2020. Marcus Johnson, black male, age 29, stopped for marijuana odor. Vehicle searched. Nothing found. Complaint alleged racial profiling and fabricated probable cause. Internal Affairs finding? Officer detected odor in good faith. No evidence of discriminatory intent. Complaint dismissed. Complaint number 2, filed August 2020. Keisha Williams, black female, age 34, stopped for marijuana odor. Vehicle searched, nothing found. Complaint alleged harassment and rights violation. Internal Affairs finding? Officer's sensory perception cannot be objectively disproved. Subject's aggressive demeanor justified thorough search. Complaint dismissed. Complaint number 3, filed January 2021. David Chen, Asian male, age 41, stopped for marijuana odor. Vehicle searched. Small amount of marijuana found in center console. Arrest made. No complaint filed. Complaint number 4, filed June 2021. Tamara Brooks, black female, age 27, stopped for marijuana odor. Vehicle searched. Nothing found. Subject detained for 35 minutes. Complaint alleged excessive detention and discriminatory targeting. Internal Affairs finding? Traffic stop duration was within acceptable parameters. No evidence of bias. Complaint dismissed. 5 complaints in less than 2 years. 4 involving drivers of color. 4 searches finding nothing. 0 disciplinary action taken. But the pattern extended beyond complaints. A data analyst reviewing traffic stop records would later discover that Officer Whitmore had conducted 93 traffic stops during his 4-year tenure. Of those 93 stops, 67 involved drivers of color, 72%. 48 involved claims of marijuana odor, 52%. 43 resulted in vehicle searches, 46%. 6 resulted in actual marijuana seizure, 14% success rate on searches. The numbers told an undeniable story. Whitmore was targeting minority drivers at rates wildly disproportionate to their representation in Riverside County. He was claiming marijuana odor in more than half his stops, a rate 400% higher than department average. And his searches were yielding contraband in only 14% of cases, suggesting his probable cause determinations were either wildly inaccurate or deliberately fabricated. But supervisors had ignored these statistics. They'd dismissed complaints. They'd filed away concerns. They'd prioritized protecting an officer over protecting constitutional rights. And Angela Hayes was about to make that institutional failure very expensive. Should the "I smelled marijuana" still be legal probable cause in 2025?
The moment Angela's attorney, Marcus Chen, reviewed the body cam footage, he knew this case was different. He'd represented dozens of clients in traffic stop disputes. Most came down to conflicting accounts, the officer's word against the driver's word, with courts typically deferring to law enforcement. But this case had something most didn't: irrefutable video evidence of fabrication. Chen played the footage frame by frame, noting critical details. At timestamp 2:34:17, the moment Whitmore claimed to have detected marijuana odor, the body cam showed him standing beside the vehicle, windows only partially lowered, positioned at an angle where airflow from the interior would not have reached his position. At timestamp 2:34:22, when Whitmore radioed dispatch claiming strong odor of marijuana detected upon approach, the body cam showed him still standing outside the vehicle, door closed, no physical proximity to the interior where any odor would have originated. At timestamp 2:34:45, when Whitmore ordered Angela out of the vehicle, the body cam's audio pickup showed ambient street noise, traffic sounds, and wind, but no evidence of Whitmore taking any action to confirm or investigate the smell he claimed to have detected. Chen hired Dr. Patricia Gomez, a forensic video analyst with expertise in police body cam interpretation. Her analysis was devastating. Officer Whitmore shows zero physiological indicators of odor detection. When humans detect strong odors, especially unexpected ones, we exhibit involuntary responses: nasal flare, facial expression change, slight recoil or orientation toward the source. Officer Whitmore shows none of these indicators. His approach is linear, his expression unchanged, his body language consistent with predetermined action rather than reactive investigation. Chen also hired Dr. James Morrison, an atmospheric scientist, to analyze the environmental conditions. His report was equally damning. Based on wind direction, air temperature, vehicle ventilation patterns, and officer positioning captured in the body cam footage, any odor emanating from the vehicle interior would have dispersed away from Officer Whitmore's position. For him to have detected marijuana odor under these conditions would have required concentration levels indicating active smoking, which body cam footage clearly shows was not occurring. But the most devastating evidence came from comparing timestamps. Whitmore claimed he smelled marijuana upon approach, but the body cam showed he'd decided to search the vehicle before Angela had even fully lowered her windows. His probable cause claim came before any opportunity to detect odor existed. He was lying. The body cam proved it. And that lie was about to cost him everything. Chen filed a comprehensive motion to suppress evidence in the citation case Whitmore had issued Angela for unsafe lane change, a violation the dash cam clearly disproved. But more importantly, he filed a federal civil rights lawsuit that would expose the entire pattern. The lawsuit included video comparison evidence. Chen assembled footage from 3 different Whitmore stops involving marijuana odor claims. When played side by side, the pattern was undeniable. Identical body language, identical verbal claims, identical search procedures, and in 2 of the 3 cases, identical results. Nothing found. If body cams didn't exist, what do you think would have happened to a woman like her?
The federal lawsuit filed in the Central District of California was a masterclass in civil rights litigation. Attorney Marcus Chen had assembled evidence that made the case virtually impossible to defend. The named defendants were Officer Ryan Whitmore, individual capacity, Sergeant James Torres, supervisory failure, Police Chief David Martinez, administrative liability, and the City of Riverside, municipal liability under Monell Doctrine. The claims included violation of Fourth Amendment rights, unreasonable search and seizure, violation of 14th Amendment rights, equal protection or racial discrimination,
false arrest and unlawful detention, intentional infliction of emotional distress, municipal liability for failure to train, supervise, and discipline, pattern and practice of civil rights violations. But it was the evidence section that made the city's attorneys realize they were facing catastrophic liability. Exhibit A, body cam footage showing fabricated probable cause. Exhibit B, Angela's dash cam showing the same encounter from different angle. Exhibit C, cell phone video from passing motorist showing duration of stop. Exhibit D, traffic stop data showing Whitmore's discriminatory patterns. Exhibit E, internal affairs files showing dismissed complaints. Exhibit F, expert testimony proving odor detection was impossible under the conditions. Exhibit G, comparative video analysis showing pattern across multiple stops. The city's initial defense strategy centered on qualified immunity, arguing that even if Whitmore's actions were wrong, they didn't violate clearly established constitutional rights. But federal case law on pretextual stops and fabricated probable cause was well established. Multiple circuit courts had ruled that officers cannot claim immunity when inventing facts to justify searches. Depositions began 6 months after filing. Whitmore's deposition lasted 8 hours and destroyed any remaining defense. Under oath, he couldn't explain the discrepancies between his claims and video evidence. He couldn't articulate what marijuana smell was like or how he'd detected it under the documented conditions. He changed his story multiple times, first claiming he smelled it from 10 feet away, then revising to 5 feet, then claiming he'd smelled it through the window before Angela lowered it. His attorney tried damage control. Officer Whitmore believed in good faith that he detected marijuana odor based on his training and experience. Chen demolished that claim. Officer Whitmore, you've testified that you completed drug recognition training in 2019, is that correct? Yes. And that training taught you that marijuana odor detection requires proximity, correct? Yes. The body cam shows you standing 6 feet from the vehicle when you made your claim. That contradicts your training, doesn't it? The smell was strong enough to detect from 6 feet away through partially open windows on a windy day? Silence. Officer Whitmore, in your 4-year career, you've claimed to detect marijuana odor in 48 separate traffic stops, correct? If that's what the records show. And in 42 of those stops, your searches found no marijuana. That's an 88% false positive rate. How do you explain that? Sometimes people hide it. Sometimes they dispose of it before I search. Or sometimes, Officer Whitmore, you fabricate probable cause to conduct searches you have no legal justification for. The deposition transcripts became public record. Media outlets ran segments highlighting the contradictions. Community organizations organized protests outside Riverside Police Headquarters. The pressure intensified daily. Then the breakthrough came from an unexpected source. 3 more victims, all black drivers, all stopped by Whitmore, all searched based on marijuana odor claims, all findings nothing, came forward with their own dashcam footage and documentation. The case was no longer about one illegal stop. It was about systematic constitutional violations spanning years. A federal judge reviewed the evidence and issued a preliminary ruling that sent shockwaves through the department. The evidence demonstrates a pattern of Fourth Amendment violations based on fabricated probable cause. This court finds sufficient basis to support claims of both individual misconduct and municipal liability for failure to address documented patterns of discrimination. The city's attorneys calculated potential liability if the case went to trial. Between Angela's case and the 3 additional plaintiffs, they were facing exposure exceeding $30 million. A jury that saw the video evidence would likely award punitive damages. The department would be subject to federal monitoring. The political fallout would be devastating. Settlement negotiations began in earnest. Should officers like this ever be allowed back into law enforcement?
Angela Hayes returned to her corporate law practice, but the experience changed her fundamentally. She still drives the same silver Mercedes,
but now she tenses every time she sees police lights. She still wears professional attire, but she's hyper-aware of how others perceive her. She still knows her rights intellectually, but she understands viscerally how little those rights meant when Officer Whitmore decided to violate them. The $12 million settlement made headlines. The reforms provided some accountability, but Angela will never fully recover from that September afternoon when she was criminalized for doing nothing more than driving while black. She's channeled her experience into advocacy. She serves on the Civilian Oversight Board created by the Consent Decree. She speaks at law schools about civil rights litigation. She mentors young attorneys interested in police accountability work. She's transformed her victimization into a platform for change. The Bodycam footage from her stop is now used in police training academies nationwide as an example of what not to do. It appears in law school civil rights courses. It's cited in appellate briefs arguing against qualified immunity. It's become a teaching tool that's likely prevented similar violations. But Angela knows the work isn't finished. Riverside was forced to change because she had resources and documentation. But there are hundreds of cities where officers still use fabricated probable cause to target minority drivers. There are departments where complaints are still dismissed without investigation. There are victims who don't have the ability to fight back. Officer Ryan Whitmore's career ended. His reputation was destroyed. His name became synonymous with racial profiling and abuse of power. But he never apologized, never acknowledged wrongdoing, never expressed remorse for the dozens of people whose rights he violated. The $12 million settlement delivered justice, financial compensation for constitutional violations. The reforms changed practices, real accountability measures that didn't exist before. The oversight provided transparency, civilian review that didn't exist before. But none of it erases what Angela experienced. None of it undoes the humiliation. None of it removes the trauma that surfaces every time she sees flashing lights. Because this case wasn't just about one fabricated smell of marijuana during one traffic stop. It was about a system that enabled Officer Whitmore for 4 years, a system that dismissed 12 separate complaints from people who didn't have resources to fight back, a system that required viral video and $12 million in damages before delivering basic accountability. She did everything right, stayed calm, knew her rights, spoke clearly, and still, she was targeted. This wasn't a smell. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a lie caught on camera. A lie that cost Officer Whitmore his career. A lie that cost the city $12 million. A lie that exposed systematic civil rights violations spanning years. The body cam doesn't lie. The dash cam doesn't lie. The pattern doesn't lie. And the $12 million settlement stands as proof. When officers fabricate probable cause to target people based on race, when departments ignore complaints and enable abuse, when systems prioritize protecting officers over protecting rights, there will be consequences. Angela's case represents victory, but it also represents failure. Failure that it took this long, cost this much, and required this level of proof before anyone took action. The real question isn't whether the settlement was large enough. The question is how we prevent the next Angela Hayes, the next Ryan Whitmore, and the next department that looks away while constitutional rights are systematically violated.